everyone, and welcome to Online Church. We are so happy that you can join us today. It is an honor that we get to do this together, right? And hey, if you're new today and you're checking out church for the first time, then welcome. We really hope that you feel at home here.
That's right, and you know what? We have got potentially some really exciting news coming to you. We've been watching all the latest government announcements, and our thinking is that currently we're going to try and resume in-person services at our facility here at the church on the 13th of December. Now that's our current thinking, pending anything changing. So keep your eyes fixed to the website, keep your eyes on our social media streams, because that's what we're thinking now. But we are so excited. Our whole site has been deep cleaned. We're ready, we're prepared. The only thing missing is you. So we're really hopeful that we will be able to resume our in-person services on Sunday, the 13th of December.
Wow, that is so exciting, right? It feels like the news we've been waiting for so long. And hey, keep an eye on socials, keep an eye on your emails. We'll be contacting you and letting you know when to book your tickets, so do not worry, you will not miss out. And hey, if you're not ready to come and join us yet in-person gatherings, do not worry, because we have got you covered. On Sundays, we are going to be streaming live into your lounges, into your living rooms. It's going to be so good. You're not going to miss out on a thing.
That's absolutely right. But today, we've all gathered and tuned in online to watch Online Church. So why not go and get a notebook, because we're believing that you are going to hear from God today. Why not turn up the TV, turn up the stereo system as we worship and say welcome to Liverpool One Church.
What church, you are in for an incredible service with us this morning. We are so glad you made it to us. When you worship with us wherever you are. And I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise, treasures that fade, and never enough. Came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing
How is everybody doing today? I just hope that you guys are just doing tremendously well wherever church is coming at you today. Whether that's sat off in your pajamas, in your living room, just kind of chilling out, getting a late breakfast, or whether you're still snoozing and just watching on your portable device. Man, I am so glad that you are here checking out church. It really is an honor. And I think that I love what Dave and Vicky have already said. He's right, we do have some plans that we are going to be intentional about trying to open up some in-person gatherings again from round about Sunday the 13th of November. You're just going to have to stay tuned and fixed in to all of our social media to see how we're going to release tickets for that. But I want you to know that we've got some of the smartest and most intelligent people in our church who've all been leaning in and leaning out on experts all over to try and ensure of your safety as we make sure that we're COVID compliant, COVID safe, and COVID secure as we look to get in-person gatherings back going again as of the 13th of November. Well, hey, listen, we're actually going to be continuing our current series right now that's simply called, Lord, I'm Losing It. I don't know about you, but I think that there are times and seasons in your life and in mine when it just kind of feels like, man, I'm losing it. Or maybe you feel like I'm losing one particular attribute. Maybe it feels to you like you're just losing something that you used to have and you don't know, how are you going to get it back? Is it even possible to get it back? But before we do that, once I've successfully been able to unlock the keypad on my iPad that is proving somewhat difficult right now, I want to start off by, there we go, we're in. The message is going to go forth. Don't you worry. I saw you all kind of like getting really concerned there. But here's the thing. I've just heard a couple of stories this week that have been inspirational to me. They're the kind of stories that, if I'm honest, that like they can only happen in Liverpool. Like they're the kind of stories that when you hear them, you'll go, yeah, that's Scousers. You'll hear them and you go, too right, like that's my home city. That's where I'm from. And I was just having a bit of a conversation with some of our business guys who are in and around our church, have businesses right on the doorstep of our church community here. And they were just making me laugh. They were telling me about like, hey, have you heard what the guy down the road is doing? And I'm like, no, what guy? They turn around and they say, hey, listen, well, there's, you know, the guy that runs the car wash, and they named the car wash and they named the road. And I was like, oh yeah, I think I know that guy. He goes, well, did you hear what he did? I'm like, no, I have no idea. What did he do? They said, well, you know when lockdown 2.0 struck and everything changed and we were all told like, you've got to stay at home, you've got to work from home, and it's only really like certain sectors of work that are allowed to operate. He knew that his car washing business was completely shutting down. But this guy, being a Scouse guy, I mean, he's genius really. He turns around and he creates this idea about how now we're going to repurpose the business. We're no longer going to be a car washing business. Now we are an emergency windscreen checking station. So what that means is you would drive your car onto the site of the car wash where two individuals would just check that your windscreen is not cracked. No small scratches, not going to be problematic for the winter season. And then once your very short 5-second windscreen check is over, you got a free car wash once you paid for your windscreen check. I mean, I'm like, that is just ingenious, right? Well, the police didn't think so and they shut him down. But being a Scouse guy, he thought, well, what can I do now? He goes, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up, I'm going to repurpose the car wash, and now I'm going to become a grocer. I'm going to sell apples, so you're going to pay for your apple, but you happen to get a free car wash and your apple might cost you £6. But you get a free car wash with every apple. And that's kind of enabled him to stay open. And the guys around the church, they were just laughing their heads off. They just kind of work in and around where our church is based. And then one of the guys was saying to me and goes, and I've been getting in the gym every day. And I was like, getting in the gym? Like, my gym has been closed for what feels like ever. I've not been able to get in there even once. And he was like, mate, I've been in there every morning until yesterday when the police shut us down. I said, the police shut you down too? He goes, yeah. He said, what we did was we knew we couldn't open as a gym. So we became a house of prayer. We repurposed as a church and we were doing early morning prayers on the bench press. And I'm just like, man, these Scousers, they're kind of like genius. Now, I know I'm not supposed to say that as a pastor. And maybe I'm supposed to like frown on that and kind of say like, isn't that a little bit illegal? Is that not a little bit of a flexing of what is truthful and what is the law? And maybe there's some bending of the rules in there. I'm not too sure. But what I love about that story is you can't keep them down, right? You can't keep Scousers down. You can't keep people in the Northwest down. And what I do love is that we do seem to often find a way of staying positive even in really difficult times. Yet positivity is one of the most difficult things for us to get back once we've lost it. And I know for sure that some of us feel like that in this season. We feel like, Lord, I am losing my positivity. I'm losing my positive spirit. I'm losing my optimistic outlook in life. You know, I don't think that as church leaders and pastors, I'm not sure that we've always done a great job when it comes to communicating from platforms such as these. The reasons why I say that is I think that sometimes we've often majored on things that are not going to play a huge deal of difference in your life at the cost of not focusing on other things that can make a massive difference. What I mean by that is sometimes we have liked to labor and weigh heavy in on subjects that might make us sound particularly great, might make us sound somewhat more educated than we really are, might make us sound impressive, and we might talk about certain subjects that are contained within Scripture, and we should rightfully be talking about them. Yet sometimes we talk about certain things at the cost of not talking about others. It's kind of like we can labor on things like, man, how if you're a follower of Jesus, and I hope that you are, but even if you're not, you're just kind of weighing things out and you sat there in your home and you're thinking to yourself, maybe church, maybe when it gets back open again, maybe that's a place that I would like to visit. And even though you're thinking right now, like church historically has not been that place that you've ever given any consideration to at all, I want you to know we're building this church for people just like you. People who thought church would never be for you, well, Liverpool One Church is being built for people just like you, because that's most of our story. We're all in relationship with this real and authentic God, and often many of us felt like that would never be available to us, but now we know that it is. We want to make sure that you know that it's available to you also. But many of us can kind of be in church and we like to talk about things like, well, let's talk about prayer. Let's kind of pull out all the scriptures and talk to you about the importance of prayer. Now, I'm a prayer. I'm a believer in trusting God. I'm a believer in being communicative with God with all the things that are on your heart. I earnestly believe in prayer, but sometimes we've focused so much on things like prayer that we've not spoken about some of the practical issues in the church. We've spoken and taught people how to praise and worship, how to sing and clap in time and raise their hands at the right moment of the song. And yet what's crazy is that for as awesome as our praise and worship moments in the church can be, we're still going around living what feels like failing lives. I know that people have been massively engaged in a worship moment and then walk out of church and have a great big blazing row with their wife or their husband. And then you kind of go, well, so what's that about? I mean, how does that work out? Some of us, we like to talk about how we can teach you how to exegetically extract the studies. We can throw words from the Hebrew, the Greek, and the Aramaic and impress you with our Bible knowledge. We can talk to you and make reference to the scholars that we've been leaning into in preparation for our talks and our messages. But if we do that and we don't talk about things that really help your life, like really make you better at life, because I believe that following Jesus makes your life better and you better at life. And if we don't talk about the practical things, you end up going like, well, what's the good? Like, how does this really change? The truth is, we can very easily grow a church that knows how to do the right stuff, say the right things, and yet have the most critical spirit. We can grow a church that knows how to yell, holler, shout amen, wave flags, whatever, but yet is unkind and unloving to his or her family members or friendship groups. We have people who know the Bible inside out and yet don't know what it's like to be gracious that's done something wrong towards them. In other words, we can major on things at the cost of missing out on other things that are so important. And I don't want to be that type of leader. Truthfully, I don't want to build that type of church. I want to build the type of church where we authentically, together, work out how we can all best serve one another and follow Jesus. That's why today I want to talk to you about staying positive. That's why today I want to start to try and get you to think about what you think about. What do you think about when you're thinking? Like, what's going on in your head? What's going on in your mind? What's going on in your thought life? And this is so important. Like, you might not have even thought or considered that question before, but there comes a point that if you follow Jesus, you've got to think about what you think about. And the reason why you've got to think about what you think about is that many people think that they can change their life, change their course and direction that their world is heading in by changing the stuff that they do. But when you do that, it never lasts, right? Because the people who are able to successfully make the changes that they want and head in the direction that they want to be headed in, do so because they're rooted in a knowledge and awareness that change happens off the basis of how you feel. So you make changes and choices based off how you feel. If you feel like making a change, you're going to make the change. If you feel like eating healthily, then you're going to start to eat more healthily. If you feel like getting fit, you're going to start to get fit. But the problem is the way that you feel is formulated by the way that you think. So if you want to change the way you act, you've got to change the way you feel. But that's never going to happen unless you first change the way you think. So what do you think about when you're thinking? Proverbs 23:7 says this, "For as a man thinks in his heart, so he is." In other words, the writer of this proverb is only really telling us what we all know already. He's kind of saying, just so you know, guys, whatever happens on the perimeters, on the outskirts of someone's life, it doesn't start there. It's kind of like whatever somebody does with their hands, it doesn't start in their hands. It starts rooted in a decision or a thought or a process or a mindset that's in the depth of the heart. What the writer's telling us is, look, just so you know, if someone's angry in his heart, he's going to be angry. Like, if you ever see somebody that's angry with their hands and they get all highly strung like that, it's not because one thing has just tipped them over the edge. It's not because one incidental, insignificant thing has just happened as a one-off. It's because they're angry in their heart, and that anger in their heart spills out into their life. In the same way that when you see somebody who's bitter and twisted and you're kind of like, dude, like, who tied you up in a knot? It's because they've got bitterness in their heart. Where there's bitterness in their heart, you'll see bitterness outworking in their hands. It's the same with jealousy. If you've got a jealous heart, you'll have jealousy outworking in your life. If you've got a downcast heart, you'll be downcast, you'll be depressed, you'll feel down all of the time. When your heart is sad, the outworking of your life will be sad. And the same is true with negativity. You ever met that guy that's just hard work to be around, or that girl? Like in the office or on the ward or in the factory, in the gym, at the sports club, wherever you do life, and it's like no matter how much you connect with them, they're just so depressingly negative about everything in life. You know, it's sort of like, it doesn't matter what season it is, it doesn't matter what's happening, they've got nothing good to say about anyone, they've got nothing good to say about anything, and being around them is just tiresome. It's burdensome. Well, that isn't just an action that people demonstrate, it's an action that's replicating what's going on in the heart. When you see a negative person, it's because they've got negativity ingrained in the depth of their heart. And in the same way, when you're around somebody who, man, it's just like being around someone who's like a breath of fresh air, like they're positive, they're happy, they just seem to look forward expectantly in life. They just seem to always have a thing about, hey, we're going to rework the car wash this week and we're going to become a grocery store. Like, you know how life-giving it is when you're around people and it's like, hey, even though we face struggles, even though we face challenges, even though we face difficulties, they've just got this way about them that's kind of like so life-giving and refreshing. It's because they have positivity in their heart. Now, I want to talk about positivity, but not in the really annoying way. And I say that because I think church is really bad for this. We're really good at and everybody's got one of these friends. They're a Christian and they are so hyper positive. You know, it's kind of like when they go the Asda, they get a car parking space, and even though there's 100 car parking spaces available for them to park in, they're absolutely convinced that the car parking space that they've been given is been given by God himself. And they're like, can you believe this? Like, I went into the Asda, found a car parking space, and you're like, dude, that's not God. Like, it was 10 o'clock at night and nobody was there. And they're like, no, it was just amazing. It was incredible. And you just like, shut up. And all you want to do is give them a friendly Christian punch in the face. Or you find someone else and they're like so hyper positive. It's like, can you believe what God did for me? And I'm thinking like, what did he do? Has he healed you? Has he like done a financial miracle in your life? And they're like in tears and having a breakdown. I'm like, you wouldn't believe it. I'm like, well, I won't unless you tell me. And like, what did God do for you? And you're like, well, I lost my keys at 8 o'clock. And I'm like, shut up. Like, shut up. Don't talk to me about your keys. You know, I'm not talking about being positive in that really annoying way. I'm talking about having an optimistic attitude about the future. I want to talk to you about being positive about what's ahead of you. I want to talk to you about how you can remain positive about everything that's in front of you, even in spite of what we're facing, even in this crazy season that we're all in today. Because there's so many challenges that can rob us and steal from us our positivity. I mean, there are many of you that will know exactly what it's like. Maybe you're a new parent, right? New mom, new dad, got a toddler, and man, this is the toddler that you thought was going to be just the biggest blessing in your life, and they are on one hand, but on the other hand, it feels like everything we do now doesn't even look close to what our life used to resemble. And even though you're aware of like the blessing of what the baby is and the blessing of what the toddler is, and you're just praying for the day, like, God, when does he start school? Can I start him at school at 18 months? Is that allowed? Is that legal here? Because you're just like, God, I just want to feel like my life is somewhat normal again. And it's easy, even in the midst of the blessing, to be robbed of our positivity because, you know, it's hard. It's not easy. Maybe we're all aware of what it's really like when you're in work. It's hard to stay positive in work. In fact, we could talk about countless examples, but maybe you work in the NHS. Maybe you're a doctor. Maybe you're working on a ward. Maybe you're working in triage. Maybe you're a nurse. Maybe you're working in our hospital trust services right now. And on one hand, you know that what you get to do is an incredible job. And there are many attributes of your work that you're so proud of. And you're like, can you believe we get to do this? We get to help people. And yet, on the other hand, just because of the nature of what it is that you're involved in, it feels to you like this is the hardest job ever. It feels to you like we're almost in this situation whereby it feels like, man, we're just around tragedy and we're just around all the other crazy stuff that's going on in the hospital, and we're just trying to make ends meet. We're trying to just get through the day, and it feels to you like this is hard, this is crazy, and it just feels real tough. Or maybe you work in the arts sector. Maybe you're a dancer. Maybe you're a singer, a performer. Maybe you work in live events. Maybe that's what you studied. Maybe that's what you dreamt of being involved in. And for ages, it felt like incredible. Until you were told now's the time to retrain, restudy, refigure out what you want to do in life. And now it's like, man, on one hand, that was everything that I was so positive about and passionate about. But now it feels like, man, like, I don't want to retrain. And yet you can't do what you love to do. So it's easy to feel, well, I'm just getting somewhat negative right now. I'm losing my optimism. I'm losing that ability to see and believe and think that what's ahead of me is going to be greater than what's behind me. Maybe you're in the uniform services right now and you've just heard public sector pay freezes, and that's just freaking you out. That's just like making you so mad. Because on one hand, you know that what you do makes a difference. You want to help, you want to serve people. And on the other hand, it just feels like, man, this has got so tough for you. I mean, like, why is it your sector anyway that's having to take the hit and take the brunt? It's hard to stay positive. And then when you're surrounded with a bunch of people too, who feel that, but even to greater extremes than you do, and they're so negative, every cup of tea you have when you come into work, every time you sit down in a briefing room, every time you go out on a job, all you hear about, all you talk about is what's bad and what's going to happen with your pay. And it just feels like I'm losing my optimism. You can run a small business, lockdown 2.0, find that your finances have been dramatically affected, everything stripped away from you, and it feels like, is this ever gonna end? It just feels hard to stay optimistic. Even for us leading a church, like it feels crazy right now. Now, granted, I am so excited about the prospect of us being able to gather again for in-person meetings. But the beginning of this year felt like, okay, maybe we're not gonna be able to be in person, maybe for like 6 weeks. We had no idea, and we did not see it coming, that we wouldn't be doing church by like November and December, and it's completely changed and reworked the way we would typically work. It's hard to stay positive. We could talk about relationships. We could talk about how hard it is relationally to stay positive about something that was once so amazing, but now it just feels like, man, he just drives me crazy. It just feels like the spark has gone, and even though they were your go-to guy, your go-to girl, and in the early days it was just, man, this was just electric, now it just feels like I don't even know what there is to be positive about anymore. It just feels so negative. But what if there was a way to stay positive? What if by simply just giving some time and attention for you to think about what you think about, what if there really was a way for you to stay positive? Because I think that you should consider that. Because when you're positive, you're a better friend, you're a better husband, you're a better wife, you're a better employer, you're a better employee, you're just a better human being. And when I make reference before to about how for us, it feels on one hand like we're really great at teaching people how to be Christian and a great church-going person, what's the point if you fail at being a human being? And being positive is an attribute that you've got to have going on. Because when you're positive, you're easier to be around. Your company is enjoyed and not endured. Like when you're positive, people are excited that you're in the room for the meeting. When you're positive, people are excited to go out for dinner with you and excited to come to your house and do dinner. When you're positive, you're just so much easier to be around. You're easier to promote. Because let me just say this, it's really hard to promote and move up the chain the negative guy. Like nobody wants that in an organization. Nobody wants that in a business or in a church. When you're not positive, you're real hard to promote. When you're negative, you're really hard to love. But when you're positive, you're easier to love. And when you are positive, you will love better. There's so many reasons that I would encourage you to just think about what you think about and now do this. I want us to talk from one piece of scripture that maybe you've heard before, maybe you've just skim read it, but it's a passage of scripture that Paul writes to the church in Corinth, Philippi actually, not that church, same guy, different church, okay, different letter. And in this particular letter, he's like saying, hey guys, brothers and sisters, you should really think about what you think about. He was saying, don't be flippant in this. Don't be unintentional with what you think about. I think that Paul knew that if you win the battle in the mind, you win your battle in the feelings. And then if you win your battle in your feelings, you'll win your battle with your actions. Paul knew that if you ever want to change your life, it starts in your mind. And that's why he says to this church, he's like, look, like if you follow Jesus, I mean, the choice is yours. You don't have to do this, but you really should do this. He was saying, this isn't a heaven and hell kind of issue, okay? He wasn't like saying, if you don't do this, you're gonna burn in hell. There was none of that going on, but he was saying, why would you not want to do this and be this way? Why would you not want to think about how you think? Why would you not want to be considerate about what goes on in your mind? And then he goes into it. He gets so instructional in Philippians 4, verse 8. And this is the passage of scripture that Paul gave to the church in Philippi that says to them, guys, and I think that if he was here, stood here, he'd say the same thing to each and every one of us. He'd say, guys, when it comes to your thought life, when it comes to what's happening in your mind, when it comes to what's going on in everything between your ears, if you follow Jesus, if you do this, your life will be better. If you do this, your life is going to be so much more positive. And this is what he says. Finally, Brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. He gave us this list and he says, hey guys, look, you want to win the battle of your mind? You want to figure out a way of how you can stay positive? You want to really understand how you can fight the curse of negativity so you're not that guy, so you're not that girl? Well, just so you know, it doesn't happen by mistake. It happens by being intentional about the way in which you think. So again, what do you think about when you think? Paul says it starts off by thinking about that which is true, that which is accurate. I think many of us, me especially, because this is just my wiring, my wife hates this about me, right? She'll kind of like see me wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is like, I reach my phone and I'm just going through like all of the news apps. I don't mean like just one, I mean all of them. Because I'm like, just give me the information. Like what's happening in the world? And she'll say like, can you not just go slower? I mean, my eyes wake up and I'm straight on what's happening in the world. Like I'm not doing social media, I'm like, what's happening in the world? And she's like, why are you doing that? And then what I've realized is that actually sometimes it's just not helpful, even for me, and maybe the same for you, especially in this season when there is so much bad news. And I'm not trying to be dismissive about this, okay? I'm not trying to pretend that there is no bad news. We all know there's a ton of bad news. But I'm just saying, I don't want to be dismissive of the bad news. I just don't want my life to be driven by it. And for me, it's meant that I'll look at the news in the morning and then I'm just going to try and leave it. So I'm aware of what's accurate and what's right and what's exact, but I don't want to be driven by all the stuff in the news, especially because what Paul says is, make sure you're thinking about that which is true, that which is accurate, and that which is exact. And in this day and age that we're living in, it doesn't really matter what we're talking about. Fake news, face masks, 5G towers doing all kinds of nonsense, all sorts of things about the vaccine. Hey, there's so much rubbish that's out there. It's hard sometimes, isn't it, to filter out what's right and what's wrong and how should we be. So I'm not asking you to be dismissive of the news, okay? I'm just saying don't be driven by it. And also be aware that even though some news is true, there is a completely whole nother level of truth that exists as well. You want to know what that is? No matter what the news report tells me, here's a bigger truth, that God likes me, God loves me, and even on my worst day, he's still for me. So no matter what exists over there, I know that there's a whole load of other truth that I can fill in my mind and my thought life 24 hours a day. He goes on and says, think about that which is noble. In other words, he's talking about the personal qualities that you admire. Can I give you some advice? Sometimes it's people that can steal your positivity. Like it's the guy or the girl in the office, you can't stand them. They're always doing a thing that annoys you. Or it's somebody at home and you're like, why do they have to do that, right? And it's just frustrating. And the more you say, can you not do the thing? The more they do it to wind you up. And Paul's saying, no, think about that which is noble. You know what I think is encouraging to do here? He's saying, look, even with the people that drive you a bit mad, there's always a small, seemingly insignificant nugget of gold in the depth of them. And it might be honesty, it might be transparency, it might be generosity, it might be trustworthiness. And they might not be great at doing everything that you want, but they are good at something. And what Paul says is, so don't major on that, major on what they are good at. Major on the fact that they turn up on time. You might not love them all the time, but thank God, at least they turn up on time. They might not do everything that way that you would do it, but at least they're transparent, at least they're honest, at least you know what you're working with. Maybe they're almost too honest to a fault and that drives you mad, but thank God that they're honest. Think about that which is noble. And he goes on and he says, think about that which is right, true, correct as fact. He's saying don't be fixated on gossip or hearsay, or you heard someone say about the thing and that meant that, hey, Paul's going, no. If you want to really win the battle of your mind, you're going to have to focus and fix on that which is right, not some presumptive information somewhere. Don't listen to what someone said, thingy said that might never happen, because you're going to end up spending your life worrying about somebody doing something that they probably never even said they were going to do anyway. Paul's saying focus on what is right. He says focus on what is pure. What do you think about when you're thinking? Paul says, make sure you're thinking about pure thoughts. It means free from contamination. In other words, I think that Paul, maybe even knowing of the day and age that we would be living in today, being aware of all of the challenges that not only society faces, but especially the church faces. Like, if we're honest, it's hard to be young today and follow Jesus when you consider how accessible stuff is that was once just 10 or 20 years ago completely impossible for you to get hold of unless you knew a guy that had a dad, that had an uncle, that had a cousin that could get you something. Now you can get the most crazy stuff that's just impure, and it fills your mind and it makes you addictive to things. And it doesn't matter whether it's on TV, Netflix, social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, it's all out there. And Paul was going, look, the challenge for you is going to be to stay pure in your mind. You don't want to fill your head with that movie. You don't want to fill your head with that imagery. You don't want to fill your head with that video, because the more you keep watching it, the more it's going to make you feel far worse about yourself. And then you're going to be riddled with shame and guilt and be burdened down. Paul was going, no, you want to win the battle of your mind, then you've got to think pure thoughts. And he goes on, think lovely thoughts. It means think about things that are attractive and beautiful. And guys, that doesn't just mean the girls, okay? Just letting you know, just putting it out there. But Paul says, unless you're married, of course, in which case, go and love your wife long time. He says, look, just think about lovely thoughts, pleasant and enjoyable and delightful. The next word is admirable, deserving of respect and approval, and things which are excellent, extremely good, and outstanding. And it's not the acknowledgement that there are bad things that might exist in your life. He's just saying, but what you'll pretty much always find is, even amongst the rubble, it's still possible to find a diamond. Even amongst the carnage, there's still some things contained within it that are excellent, that are good, that are outstanding. He says, think about things that are praiseworthy. In other words, deserving of approval and admiration. He was saying, don't think about the blameworthy things. Think about the praiseworthy things. He's saying, you don't want to live that life. You don't want to be that person that just becomes so consumed with what they did to you, because then it locks you in and you can't live your life free because you want to blame them and you want everybody else to know of the thing that they did to you, and you feel the hard done by. Paul's like, hey, just let it go. He's like, just focus on the things that are praiseworthy, not blameworthy. Because in closing, you have to water what you want to grow in your life. And if you want to be a positive person, and I believe you should, I actually believe that if you're a follower of Jesus, you should be one of the most positive people on the planet. Not the friendly Christian punch in the face type of person, but I think that there should be an air of positivity around you, because you understand that God has saved you, that God has redeemed you, that God has called you as an adopted son and daughter in his family. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, it's like God knows you and God calls you. And I just think that sometimes it boils down to a choice, because you don't get positive, you don't become positive by mistake. It is a choice. And sometimes you've just got to make sure you're listening to the loudest voice, the right voices. And often the loudest voices that you hear aren't always the most important. I've found that with the news. It seems to be shouting, screaming at me every day, like, check me, read me. Here's another piece of information. Hey, listen, sometimes the loudest voices are not the most important. Sometimes you've got to create a window in your world where you can be still, spend time with God and ask him to speak to your spirit. Because if you want to become positive, you've got to water the right thoughts in your life. And it's not always about stopping thinking a certain way. It's equally, if not more so important, about replacing those thoughts with other thoughts. And the other thoughts that Paul encourages us to think about are those that are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. And if we do that, I think we will become positive. And I think that that'll be better for you in your life. I think it'll be better for your career. I think it'll be better for your marriage. I think it'll be better for our church. And I'm convinced it would be better for our city. Like, could you imagine if in our city, this church became known for having the most positive and life-giving, life-filled people contained within it? Can you imagine what kind of a real significant difference a church like that could truly make? So my prayer for each and every one of you is that we would not lose the art of staying positive, even in difficult times, and we do it by thinking about what we think about. Church, it would be my honor if I can pray for you right now. Father, being positive is certainly not something that comes naturally to all of us. In fact, if we're going to be honest, some of us, we struggle with it immensely. It's difficult. It's hard. There are so many thoughts that are competing for our attention that it's easy to fall into the trap of being negative, speaking negative phrases and words, thinking negatively. So Lord, I pray that this week there'd be a marked difference, that amongst our community of faith, that we would truly be positive people. Lord, I pray and I ask that this week, that we would do what Paul taught, that we would control what goes on in our minds, that we'd win the battle of what's going on in our thought life, that we wouldn't just stop thinking about some things, but God, we'd replace them thoughts with thoughts that you would have us think on. That which is good and right and lovely and true and praiseworthy and admirable. God, we're asking for your help because we want to be that kind of church. And I want to be that kind of follower of Jesus. And we need your help to get there. So we ask this all in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
I'm caught up in your presence, and I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave, and I'm not here for blessing. Jesus, you don't know me anything more than anything that you can do. And I just want you. And I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry I just sang another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. And I'm sorry when I've come with my agenda. I'm sorry I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. Oh Jesus, I'm caught up in your presence, and I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. Oh, I never wanna leave. more than anything that you can do. I just want you. And I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. And I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. 'Cause I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. And I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. And I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. And I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. 'Cause I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. And I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. 'Cause I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. 'Cause I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you. I just want you. There's no one but you, God. There's no one I need. Only you, God. 'Cause only you can make a way. Only you can change this story. 'Cause there's no one but you, God. There's no one but you. Nothing else will do. Would you move today, God? Would you move in a new way? In a new way, God. Would you speak to us? Would you come, Lord? There's no one but you. No one but you. So I'm coming back to the heart of worship when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, 'cause it's all about you, Lord. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, 'cause it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made, 'cause it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, 'cause it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it, 'cause it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. It's all about you, God. Only and I'm coming back to the heart of worship, 'cause it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it, 'cause it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus.
Well, hey, what an incredible message that was. And you know, the power of our thought life is simply huge. But you know, the same as we do every week, if we just go home and we do nothing and we live our lives like we've heard nothing, then nothing will ever change. So how about this week? How about we take Luke's incredible message and we apply it to our lives and we just watch what God can do, right?
So good, that's amazing. Do you know, we've come to the time of our service now where we give you the opportunity to do tithes and offerings. So you'll see in this, just below, underneath, you'll see the different ways that you can give to church. And as a church family, we want to say thank you so much for your generosity, especially in this season. Because if it wasn't for you giving in this season, then we wouldn't be able to do what we get to do, right? We wouldn't be able to launch in-person gatherings and also stream live into people's houses. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, we're so grateful. You know, hey, time has gone today, but we have loved having you with us for online church. And don't forget, over the next coming days, keep your eyes tuned to all of our social channels and our website, because we are so hopeful that we'll be able to launch some form of in-person gathering on the 13th of December if nothing changes. So stay tuned. Have a great week.